friends, my name is Molly. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Today I wanted to talk about how to create your own flow, how to flow on your own. A couple of you were asking me how to do that when you only been practicing with classes, and that question was so relatable to my journey. You feel maybe lost when you're trying to do it on your own, and even though your body wants to express itself, it's still kind of confusing where to start and how to go about it. In this video I wanted to give you my tips and experience of how to create your own flow, what I've learned through my journey, and this will hopefully help you to flow on your own and find your own style. Let's get into it. So when I was doing my everyday yoga challenge for a year, I did so many classes, and at some point I just wanted to do it on my own. My body was asking to express itself, and I was really stuck because every time I tried to do it, I felt really lost. So at the time I was doing flows with Zoe J. Mitchell. She was my first yoga teacher, and I texted her if she has any guidance for me to kind of create my own flow and where should I start. Maybe she'll give me some tips. And I expected her to give me some like general tips, maybe some guidance. And what she said was not what I expected. She basically said, "Girl, I think you're ready for a yoga teacher training." Something scary that I was kind of like, not avoiding, but I was like, this is in the future. So I looked into that and I did my yoga teacher training, and that would be probably my main advice because this makes the most sense. Yes, you can have experience with your body, experience with different teachers, different flows, but in yoga teacher training, it's just way easier to understand because this is a very nice package of everything you kind of need to know as a base. The anatomy, the flow from experienced teacher, how to build a flow, yoga philosophy, and what you want your flow to feel like. This is lots of beautiful information that you kind of get packaged. This will be probably the best way to start creating your own flows. I personally did it online, which was much more accessible for me at the time, and you can do it online. There's lots of programs right now. You can watch my video on my experience in yoga teacher training, see what to expect, and hear more information about it if you are curious. But yes, I think this would be the main tip that would make the most sense for you to understand what you're doing. So I strongly recommend, this is something that you will definitely only gain from. Highly recommend it. But maybe you don't have an opportunity right now to do that. Maybe you're already a yoga teacher and you're just looking for a new inspiration how to build your own flows. The further tips I will be mentioning will be more based on inspiration I personally draw from my personal flows, and maybe that will help you to build your own flows, have that structure and guidance in your practice. The second tip, sun salutations. This is basically the structure on its own, and a lot of my flows are based on sun salutations. You basically just go in this circle. It starts as a warm-up. You can just do a simple A and B, and then you just start adding things to it based on your flow. Basically keep it as a structure. This adds that fluidity to your practice and vinyasa transitioning. One of the most difficult things when coming up with your own flow is to understand the structure, especially when you're not as experienced, and sun salutations give that structure, give that sense of fluidity, and I think this is a great way to explore what you want to explore with the help of that structure of sun salutations. The next tip ties really nicely into the sun salutation tip. I recently took part in an amazing workshop on creative sequencing by Adele Bridges, and she mentioned this 3% rule. It's so simple but makes such a difference. Basically, you take maybe sun salutations or the flow that you kind of feel tired of, but you are familiar with it, and you add the 3% of little tiny additions here and there. That adds growth to your flow, that adds potential for you to develop yourself in different areas, and adds more fun and novelty. When we are doing the same thing over and over again, we can maybe get bored and have that kind of like automatic setting, and when you add new things to it, you become more aware of it because you're not as familiar, and your body works harder because those are newer movements. So this could be a really great idea for you to add onto the flows that you're already familiar with. Creating a whole new flow could be really overwhelming because there's so much opportunity to create from and you just feel lost. This is why I really like this point that Adele brought up, this 3% rule. It's a really small change here and there, but it makes a really big difference. For example, you can add little twisting movements onto your down dog. You can maybe do a little push-up in your chaturanga, which I personally really like. Have fun with it. It's a really little changes. You can make them as intense as you want. For example, I like adding a little crow in a transition just to kind of give myself a little bit more pump, little balance play. It could be a little ankle or wrist movement. It could be a little neck roll in between sets. This is where you get to express yourself within a structure and not feel overwhelmed. I've been loving implementing this tip, and I think you will too. The next tip would be basing your flow around a pose or two poses. So basically, this is what they also taught us in the yoga teacher training. You base sometimes a flow around the pose that you want to achieve. It's a peak of your flow. Or you can choose two poses, three poses that you kind of base your flow around. Basically, take a pose that you are having fun with. You don't have to be good at it. It's just a pose that excites you, and you build your flow around it. So it's a good idea to first explore flows out there that other teachers already made based on this pose, or the pose is included in the flows. You basically get familiar how other people are flowing with this pose. By learning those things, repeating them, you take the things that work for you and base the flow around this pose. You basically warm up to it and then you just play in it. Yeah, this is something that I personally really like to do. Personally, I started building a lot of flows around inversions that I am practicing. There's lots of teachers that I explored those poses with, and I took little bits and pieces of what I personally like from those teachers and included them in my inversion practice. And like I mentioned before, sun salutations are always a great structure to base those flows around. Warm up with sun salutations and include into your flow that pose that you want to highlight. So basically, if you choose a pose or two to base your flow around, you did half of the job, because you know what the main attention point of the flow is. And then you just choose the poses that complement it as a warm up and a warm down. And you can put all of it into a structure of the sun salutation. Yeah, that's just an example. And that's it, as easy as that. Also, a little bonus tip, the website, it's Yoga Journal. When they describe a pose, they also add poses that help you work up to that pose and warm down from that pose. I'll leave a link in the description. The last tip connects to the previous one, but in a way that maybe is more important. It is using the areas that you are maybe underdeveloped in as the basis of your flow. And this is probably my favorite tip, just because it connects to all of the previous tips and it makes a wholesome flow that challenges you in areas that you maybe not necessarily feel as developed in. And you can also maybe choose a pose that you personally really enjoy, combine it with the challenging part of your practice that you are underdeveloped in, and this creates a very wholesome, well-rounded flow that's personalized for you and your goals with your practice, and it feels like a very fulfilling practice. So sometimes maybe we accent on the things we necessarily have fun with, but maybe we don't want to put as much time into things we're not as good at, like flexibility, strength, balance, or endurance. And this is a good part to pay attention to. What do you not necessarily want to do because you feel not as confident about it? And also very important parts to include into your flow. So for example, if you are only doing kind of strength stuff, you may be putting flexibility in the background, or vice versa. So try to maybe build your flow around those areas that you are underdeveloped in, and maybe include some of the fun poses that you like, just to make it still fun for yourself, not keep it all like unknown territory. Challenging yourself is part of the fun, and don't forget to pay attention to the parts that you maybe not necessarily good at, and this will definitely make your flow very wholesome, well-rounded, and fulfilling. Sorry, my camera died, but those were my tips for creating your own flow. And like I mentioned before, the one that makes probably the most sense is to do yoga teacher training, because you will have that base of understanding what you're doing. But if you did it and you're just looking for some inspiration, or you don't have opportunity to do it, you're welcome to implement some of the things that personally helped me to make my practice fun and structured. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know what you're already implementing, or maybe something that I didn't mention, and that would be helpful for others to know. This was a very fun video to make, because this was a very kind of prominent point in my practice where I wanted to find that guidance of creating my own flow. And I hope you are going to be having fun exploring your own style and creating your own practice by yourself, because this is very nice, very fulfilling, and beautiful time. So yes, enjoy your practice and let me know how it goes. Bye bye!